property values go up 8%, guess what? Citizens get a bill that's 8% higher than the previous year. So every year that I've been back in office, we reduced the tax rate. The last 2 consecutive years, we've reduced the tax rate enough that we've hit what we used to call effective tax rate is now termed the no new revenue tax rate, which means if property values went up 8%, we reduced the tax rate enough to offset that increase in the citizens' property tax bill. So their tax bill didn't go up. City tax, can't speak for county and all, school and everything else. So that's called the no new revenue tax rate. Now, that's very hard to do. Very few cities can accomplish that. And the only way you can do that is run the city very efficiently. And I think our city, we have wonderful city staff members and city leadership. I'm talking about the management team. This place runs like a small business. So I've been an executive in large businesses, and I've started to run small businesses. And small businesses make quick decisions. They extract the most value out of every dollar that they spend for the objective they're under. Our objective is to meet the needs of our citizens, improve Colleyville. And so that is truly done here. And because we spend money very efficiently, we cut no programs. In fact, we grow programs, but we keep, so far in the last 2 years, and we actually set a policy to each year set the no new revenue tax rate, if at all possible. If you can't, then you should understand why, and you should be able to tell your citizens what you need to raise revenue for, and that's what you're going to spend it on, so they have an opportunity to say yay or nay on that.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the critical things you brought up in your response there was that you have that business acumen, and that's how you look at it, effectiveness and efficiency. And then also one of the things that I've always harped on is how we need to have more governments move away from this baseline budget mentality. There's always going to be an increase of spending. And so if there's an increase of spending, there has to be an increase in the taxation, and get back to a zero-based budgeting model, which says, okay, we're going to raise based upon what we really need to have to be effective, to be efficient, to provide those services. And so I want to highlight, and let's talk about the incredible, I think it's a courageous decision that you made. You were the first, if I'm correct, city in the state of Texas to say, hey, we're opening back up. We're getting back to how things used to be. And I think that that is critical, because I don't see where government has the right to be able to tell individual businesses and business owners that we're going to choose and decide who is essential and who is not. So talk to us about the decision that you and the city council there in Colleyville made to step out on faith, to step out on principle, and say Colleyville, Texas is back open.
Mm-hmm. So the reason we did that, in fact, by the way, I've been told by many people that we were the first. That didn't even enter my mind when we were going through this process, literally. But what we were, of course, we have our own emergency management plan, and we have put in place a pandemic management plan, and we have activated our emergency operations center, basically. So every day we're sitting in this room talking through all the issues, looking at data. So I'm an engineer by training. I'm going to look at data. I'm going to have, when I make decisions, I want to know what's the basis for that decision, what's our objective in making the decision, and what's our basis, and then do it. And so we were looking at all the data. And so the objective truly from any government shutting down operations like was done, whether it be the U.S. or Texas or Tarrant County or the city of Colleyville, was to ensure that we were able to provide medical services and hospital beds and the equipment needed at the time of the peak of the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was very little data. There were very large predictions made, turned out to be inaccurate, thankfully so, but that's what the data was. So that led to this reaction of the government, because that data scared everybody to death on, are we going to have enough hospital rooms available? So we were tracking that very carefully. By the way, I really appreciate Governor Abbott. He's done a fantastic job in ensuring changing things, working with the hospitals and the CEOs to ensure we had capacity. But at the time we made the decision, here's the data that we were looking at. So there was approximately 5,800 hospital beds available in Tarrant County. 50% of them were being used. 50% of that capacity was available. Of the ventilators, which is a very hot topic at the time, only 20% of the ventilators were in use. And so you can look at any category of hospital beds, general hospital beds, ICU beds. There was plenty of capacity available at that time. So that means what happened? We met our objective. The government's met our objective in ensuring that there was enough hospital and medical capacity available to handle the medical needs of people that did get the virus at that time. And that was just about right at the peak. So that was the maximum time. And so that said, hey, we met that objective. In Colleyville, we're a small town. We have a lot of local small businesses, many of them locally owned, and most of the large businesses in town were open because they were essential businesses. So it was the small businesses that were just getting hurt dramatically. And so we said, it's time to start opening up because we met that objective. There's plenty of hospital capacity available. And so we did that. And we did that in a way, and this been a lot of controversy. It was interesting from the news media mainly.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, every time I talk about this, I say our strategy is we are going to follow the guidance and directives of the President of the United States. We're going to follow the CDC guidelines, and we're going to follow the executive orders of Governor Abbott, period. That's what we're going to do. So when we opened up, the way we did it was entirely consistent with Governor Abbott's executive order. Other people just didn't perceive it that way. But we interpreted that order in a way that was the best it could be for Colleyville. And so we opened up with certain restrictions. And for instance, you had to have appointments. The governor's order at that time basically said non-essential businesses were not open to the general public. So we opened it not to the general public, but for appointments and scheduled events, limited in size, where the businesses knew who was coming so they can make adequate preparation for distancing and everything else. And in fact, the governor agreed with us. And then 1 week later, the governor started opening up himself in a very similar manner in which we did. So
without a doubt, again, you applied logic, you applied reason, and you studied and looked at the data and the statistics. So I would say, as we get ready to close out, would you recommend that other mayors of, maybe the smaller cities or the smaller counties even, start doing exactly what you have done instead of a, overarching carpet bombing, cookie cutter type of approach? Allow people to do exactly what you did and make the right decision for your community?
Yeah, well, let me say something I neglected to say that's very fundamental to all this. Our decision process was, I agree with you, governments shouldn't make all the decisions. We are free people and we have rights. And so we were trying to push those decisions down to the citizens and the businesses so they could participate in those decisions. They usually make better decisions than we do most of the time, actually. And so that was the philosophy of trying to opening up with certain parameters so you maintain the safety requirements and guidelines. I mean, I preach those, all of us preach those CDC physical distancing and safety guidelines all the time. So people usually take their health very seriously, so they're going to do those things. And in our city, we have a great citizenry, and they all do those things. So I had very much confidence in our citizens, and they continue to do those things as we open up. But back to your question now. Should other people do it? Well, since that time, a week seems like 6 months in this time. A day seems like a week because things are moving so quickly. The governor actually, on a statewide level, has opened up all non-essential businesses to 25% occupancy. He's opened up, a big deal with us is we opened up restaurant patios. He's done that to full capacity, restaurants to 25% capacity inside. And so actually that opening up has started for salons and nails and barbershops and stuff. We had opened up on an appointment basis that they have now been opened up on a one-on-one basis. So we followed really a similar tack to what we were doing. So that's already in place for the whole Texas at now. The only thing that's closed now is gyms and massage parlors, basically. Massage and gyms where there's, and I think we opened up small studios that for yoga and things, but didn't quite get that from the governor. But and that will happen Friday. So Friday, excuse me, not Friday, Monday. Monday, all those will open up to 25%. So I think we're on that track now where we're moving ahead, and we're still watching the data. The data's looking good. You know, Texas is just different. You know, New York and New Jersey have half of the cases in the United States.
Yeah.
Texas has 50% less death per capita than New York. And I say that just to say, Texas is a different place than New York. So New York may do different things. So you need to make these decisions based on your community and what's going on in your community.
Absolutely. That's the whole key role of leadership, is to be able to tailor your decisions to, you know, your area, your city, your community, or in the military to your unit. So I just want to say thank you so very much, Honorable Dr. Richard Newton, for spending time with us. Where can people follow you and the website for Colleyville, Texas? And, you know, can they come over and, you know, have a nice little sit down at one of your restaurants, one of your business establishments?
Absolutely. We have wonderful restaurants. Colleyville.com is the city's website. So all the information about all of these things we talked about. We also keep a list of all the restaurants and things that are open in town, and so they can see that. But we have a wonderful place to come, and I'm very thankful for that. We're a very, very blessed community.
Well, we want to thank you, Mayor Newton, for leading the way and for being a vanguard here in Texas, because we all know that when the Lone Star shines brighter, it shines for the entire United States of America. And I think Colleyville has helped the Lone Star to shine exceedingly bright in this COVID-19 issue that we're facing. So God bless you, and thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Colonel West. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Colonel retired Raul Reyes, who is running for Texas Congressional District 23. And so we'll get his thoughts and perspectives on COVID-19, border security, and some of the other economic issues that are facing Congressional District 23. Raul Reyes is a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel with 21.5 years of active duty service to the nation. Raul was born and raised on the border town of Del Rio. His father legally migrated to that city of Del Rio from Mexico in his teenage years. Texas has always been home to Raul, and he has proudly called District 23 home his entire life. He permanently lives in a home that he built in Medina County, which is Castroville, Texas, just outside of San Antonio. Raul is a small business owner. He owns a construction company. He has been building homes since 2000, and his endeavor started as an effort to build smaller, quality, affordable homes for newlyweds, veterans, and the elderly. Concurrently, while he was still in the Air Force and where possible, he built 1 or 2 homes a year, talking about a little double dipping there. In 2014, when he returned from overseas, he ramped up his own home building efforts to 4 homes a year and has since been building up his small business. Since his retirement from the United States Air Force, he builds anywhere from 6 to 8 houses a year, and he knows how to create jobs, handle multiple projects, and balance complex budgets. So, Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alan. Good to see you again. You look terrific as always.
Well, thank you very much. I'm trying to stay safe and healthy as we deal with all of this. I call it a legal martial law and this house arrest. And it's very interesting that, you know, we talk to you as a small business owner, someone running for Congress. I believe that that's a critical and important aspect that we need to have in our members of Congress. So first and foremost, kind of give us an update on your race, because I know you're going into a runoff here a little bit in the month of July, if I'm correct.
That's right. July 14th is the runoff. And so we were one of 2 that get to go to July. 6 to 10 July is the early voting, folks. And, you know, I'm going to tell you straight up, Alan, we're up against the establishment crowd here. We're grassroots, born and raised in Del Rio, like you mentioned, business owners. If we're going to build this economy again, and we need to, let's send the home builder, somebody who's created businesses, jobs, back to DC or to DC so we can get something going quickly.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Congressional District 23 down in South Texas.
Yep. So it's the western part of Bexar County, which is San Antonio, all the way out to El Paso. In fact, it clips El Paso down there by Zaragoza Street. So if you're familiar with Fabens, Clint, Tornillo, it goes all the way up to, stays underneath Midland, Odessa there by Rankin and, of course, McCamey, Texas. And then it comes down to Sonora. So it's 29 counties, 800 miles of border. You and I have been there before by the river where there is no wall. And we need to secure the district for sure and the United States.
Now, when we talk about securing the border, what have you seen as a result of this COVID-19 issue? How has that had effects upon the border? Are we seeing increased trafficking across the border? Or are things pretty much so stabilized, or maybe even dropped a little bit?
Yeah, the numbers have steadily dropped some. But the most critical part, Alan, about the coronavirus, COVID-19, is that we were a month into locking down, trying to stay safe in the United States. And of course, like I said, we have 800 miles of border. And then we found out that the president of Mexico, and I put a post out there, a media press release saying that he had barely started to take measures to counter, doing social distancing or whatever he needed to do on his side of the border. So it goes to why we need security on this border. However many folks are coming over, if our neighbor is running through some pandemic numbers, we need to be able to control that and keep Texas families safe. And that's always been my case from day one. I said, I'm here to secure the border and then bring jobs back to the district.
And, when you talk about bringing jobs back to the district, I want to take it down the path of, Elon Musk just recently talked about, he threatened the folks out there in California, if they continue with this again, illegal martial law and this lockdown and what have you, and the draconian practices that you see with Gavin Newsom, he's going to pick up and move. And he has already put it out there to see the Texas and Nevada. How great would it be to have, that type of, automobile facility or plant come into South Texas and potentially come into the Congressional District 23?
Well, and that would be terrific. That's what we're fighting for. And, even Elon Musk and some of these Hollywood elites are realizing that California is not the place to make money because they're going to take half of it, maybe even 60% of it by the time they're done. And, Elon Musk is a businessman, so he's looking for that place that, of course, he can nurture and build his business. Well, guess what, folks? That's Texas. It's always been Texas. We're free here. We love liberty, and we love having businesses. But bring it to District 23. And, it's funny, they're in Austin where all the liberals live. They're all talking about bringing Elon Musk down, but they want him to go to Austin. Well, we want them to come to District 23. Highway 90, Del Rio, which you've been to before. Mm-hmm. Those are places that, it's funny, I was having breakfast this morning with a lady that worked at Levi Strauss, and there was another gentleman that used to work at Wrangler up in El Paso. And they're all gone. All those industries are gone. Over the last 30 years, globalism killed it. And Elon Musk is realizing that being in California is not the place to grow your business. So, yeah, bring it here. Bring it to District 23.
It's an interesting thing that you also bring up. When we look at this COVID-19 issue, we know about how we need to cut off these supply lines that we have into China, especially our critical medical supply lines. Do you see that as another opportunity to get more jobs, production, manufacturing down into Congressional District 23? And what type of things would you advocate to see move from, let's say, the China into back here into Texas, into the district you'd like to represent?
Yeah, absolutely. From day one, I'm the guy touting that we need jobs. When you grow up here, you realize that globalism killed the industry, anything and everything we've had here, and you realize that China is not your friend. And you and I have had a lot of experience in the military, of course, and you know who the friends and the foes are. And I've always said China is not our friend. And so, yeah, it's a large trading partner, but it holds the keys to ventilators, penicillins, antibiotics, large items in the medical. And by the way, in the technological field, I tested the Predator and the Global Hawk, these unmanned aerial vehicle drones. And what we realized in a lot of situations, especially coronavirus, is those critical medicines are made somewhere else. And by the way, they threaten to withhold it because they're trying to take care of their their family and friends too first, and it's just national security for them. So those are the items I would bring here. Down in San Antonio, north of I-10, there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies there. Why not grow pharmaceuticals there? Bring some of the ventilator manufacturing back to the old Levi and Wrangler companies that used to be here. And by the way, farmers is the same situation. You know, we're having this food shortage, and the supply lines are all a little bit messed up. We're importing beef from foreign places that is undercutting our ranchers. We've got to stop all that and put America first. Let's do that here in District 23. And by the way, that's exactly what I've been running with and for since day one, since I met you back in May sometime.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. We were there in San Antonio at the barbecue place, and that was our first meeting. And you're right, we had a great time down there in your hometown of Del Rio, walking along the Rio Grande, and I think that our video is still out there. Let's talk about you being a small business owner, and something that really sticks, you know, in my craw. The fact that we have elected officials that are making the decision about who and what is essential and what business shouldn't be open, what have you. Talk to us about the effects that you've seen on some of these decisions on the small businesses there in the Congressional District 23 here in Texas.
Yeah, this one's really personal for everybody as well as for me. Right where I have my office across from the Zooks in Castroville, the lady next door, I'll leave her name off, but you know, she used to sell insurance. Well, when we went on lockdown, the preponderance of her customers are 65-year-old and older, and guess what? They can't get out. We're in this lockdown mode. So she closed up after 6 weeks. She couldn't pay the rent. She couldn't support her business, and she's probably not going to open up again. And she's totally devastated. And by the way, that's happened across the board. A month ago, Alan, I put a press release. I went to Home Depot. I went into San Antonio because we're in Medina County, and you know, all the big box stores are open, all of them. And you go to Home Depot, you go to Walmart, and get anything you want. But I can't go to the local grocery store because they've shut them down. And so it just, it doesn't just seem unfair. It was totally unfair the way this happened. And we've got small businesses that are never going to come back. And that's a travesty. That should never have happened. This is where we pick, you know, either you're going to decide to take liberty and or security, but you really can't have both. And that's a famous quote from somebody else. I didn't make that up, but we're living that today.
Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Where there are people that are surrendering that essential liberty for the temporary safety, and in the end, we don't deserve neither that liberty nor safety. That's what Benjamin Franklin talked about. And so the hypocrisy is very interesting when you say that, well, I guess COVID-19 is not going to bother you in Lowe's or the Home Depot or the big places, but if you go to, or it's not going to bother if you go to the liquor store. But yet, if you go to the small ma and pa owned store, you know, that COVID-19 is going to get you there. So do you see should we be getting Texas back reopened, or this gradual drip by drip process? Where do you fall on that?
I'm for, we should have, a month ago, I said it is time to open up Texas. So we're at that point. We should have opened up Texas. Let's go. And the numbers, you know, part of where we started this was so that we would not inundate the hospitals. Remember, this is, you know, they started talking about a curve. And you have to ask yourself two questions. Were we trying to keep people from getting sick or people from dying? In any pandemic, you can do everything you want. People are still going to get sick. It's the way human factors are. And so, but our goal was to not inundate the hospital. Some hospitals are having issues because they haven't done any of the elective surgeries. And now they're trying to get back to some normal business because they too are suffering as well. So the numbers don't jive. It's time to get America and Texas back to working. Somebody was putting out, send me a message. You know, if you're an oil field guy, a little virus isn't going to hurt you. Well, and by the way, there's no doubt that every virus is dangerous and it kills people. That's not what we're talking about, folks, here. We're talking about, we're looking at the numbers, and it's time to get Texas and America back to work. And we've got to build it again. Send the builder, home construction guy to do that in D.C.
Well, you know, you're talking about a virus that has a 99.6% recovery rate. That's something that the media and the talking heads on the left kind of seem to leave out each and every time. You brought up another good point, and I'm sure that you do have some of the oil and gas industry in Congressional District 23. we saw, because we have reduced the demand for oil, we saw oil being traded in a negative pricing range for a little while, and it still is down, I believe, below $25. So that's an important aspect, and that's an important revenue generator for the great state of Texas. So should we be getting, if we get things back open up and get folks going back to work, we increase that demand. What can we do to help our oil and gas industry?
Yeah, it's funny that this COVID-19 and then, of course, the Saudis and the Russians decided to have a spat right in the middle of that. I think that's purposeful, and we should remember that as we move forward. But, from day one, what I said that we need to tariff the imported oil. Let me, 20 seconds here. Motiva is a company owned by the Saudis. It's down there in Texas. It's the 5th largest refinery in the world. The Saudis bring 1 million barrels of oil to that place every day. They refine it and sell it to us. So now watch. We are the #1 oil producer in the entire world. We ought to be the baseline for all oil prices, but because we have the Saudis in there, they drop their oil to $10 a barrel to sort of get into this food fight, so to speak, with the Russians. And we're the ones who suffer the consequence. That should never have happened. And we need to look at those things. Donald Trump secured the steel industry here about a year or two ago. Remember, we no more buying some of that cheap China steel. Well, we need to stop buying that cheap Saudi oil. We've got it right here. We're self-sustained. And so tariffs allow us to at least get the guys back, the men and women in the oil field back to working and make the world realize, look, if you're not going to bring in cheap oil into this country. That's all there is to it. And we're the #1 oil producer. We need to start acting like it. You send me to D.C., that's what's going to happen.
Well, I tell you what, Raul, where can people follow and support you in your race for Congressional District 23?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to RaulReyesForCongress.com. If you type in Raul Reyes for Congress on your Facebook or Twitter, you'll find me there as well. There's a big red button that says donate. Folks, this is the time to get off your seats. I know what we're going through. I know it's tough. $5, $3, whatever you can give is going to help us. And if you don't want the same establishment, Republicans and name only pretending to be Republicans and conservatives up in D.C., we're your guy. We've accepted no PAC money. I'm taking all the dollars that I can. $1, $2, $10. You want to send me $2,800, that's fine. But go to RaulReyesForCongress.com and hit the donate button. Our number is 210-701-5202. Most of the time I'll answer that. And if not, I'll return your phone call. We'll have a conversation about how to get Texas back to where it needs to be quicker.
Well, Raul Reyes, Lieutenant Colonel, retired United States Air Force, congressional candidate for Texas 23. I want to thank you so much for joining me here with this little chat. And I wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and God's blessings upon your travels all the way throughout Congressional District 23.
Thanks, Alan, and God bless you and the rest of Texas and America. Keep us all safe.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode of Chairman Chats. We had a great conversation tonight with the Honorable Mayor Richard Newton of Colleyville, Texas, and also Lieutenant Colonel retired Raul Reyes, running for Texas Congressional District 23. You can both follow them and all the things that they're doing, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on this Chairman Chat.